Alright guys, hello, welcome back to the video. Another landing video. The last video was kind of got cut off because I received a phone call, so we're gonna resume with that where we left in the last video. And yes, I was kind of experimenting that reset does something here, but instead of this is not required. Yeah, I'm doing something wrong here, but it's all right. It's alright. It's now or never. We're not knowledgeable enough to make these changes. Anyway, on to the use state. When you call use state, you're telling React you want this comparator to remember something. In this case, you want React to remember index. The convention is to name pair like this constant something set something. You could name anything. You look like conventions make things easier to understand across projects. The only argument to use state is the initial value of your state variable. In this example, the index's initial value is set to 0 to use state. Every time your component renders use state, that it gives you an array of containing two values: the state variable index with value stored, okay, set index, which can update the state variable and trigger React to render the component again. Here's how this happened. Your component, this is an explanation how the use state remembers it. Yes. Set index and index. Remember, this index is not supposed to be the name. It can be any other name. That's what they're telling. The value can be anything. You put A or B and that will be called in the bottom. Giving component multiple state variable. This is something we already saw. So show detail and click next and show details. But here it's called the same. It's just the literally same example. But this time it's using set index using use state. Oh, but here it remembers the value. In the previous one it does not remember the value, but here it remembers the value of the use state false and use state true. Show more, set show more, and use state is false. Like I said earlier, boolean, it's a boolean, true or false. It's a good idea to have multiple state variables if their state is unrelated, like index or show more in this example. But if you find that you often change two state variables together, it might be better to combine them into a single one. For example, if you have a form with many fields, it can conveniently lead to a single state variable that holds an object State variable per field. Choosing stat structure has more tip on this. Okay. State isolated and private. Interesting. We're importing to gallery, like side by side, but the page, this is the page function. We're displaying gallery. In the gallery here, the data, it's an app which uses state, and this is what makes state different from regular variable. You might declare at the top of your model state is not tied to a particular function call or place in a code, but it's a local specified to a place on the screen. Rendered to galleries, the component is their state stored separately. And also notice the page component doesn't know anything about gallery, the state, or whether it has any unlike props. State is fully private component declaring the parent component can't change it. This is lets you add a state to any component or remove it without impacting the rest of the component. What if you want both galleries to keep their stats in sync? Oh, nice. What they're saying is when you call in the class, when you call gallery, they both have different memories. But what if you want to call them both? Recap. Use a state variable when a component needs to remember some information between render state is hook state. Hooks are special functions that start with use, lets you hook into features like state. Usage is only valid at the top level of components or another hook. The useState hook returns a pair of values, the current state and the function to update it. You can have more than one state variable internally, or React matches them up by their order. State is a private to the component. If you render it in two places, each copy gets its own state. Oh my god, challenges. Challenges are really important stuff, but you know, there's a perfect way for you to gain knowledge with the React so fast. You do these challenges. I'm pretty sure there are tons of challenges websites, and you do those challenges, you literally get knowledge of debugging. Instead of writing, you get a huge debugging knowledge. Like, I mean huge, really huge debugging knowledge. That's the best way to become a pro in short term. Alright. When you press next, the last cover code crashes. Fix the logic to prevent a crash. You may do this by adding extra logic of a handler or by disabling when the action button is not possible. After clicking a crash, add a button. Previous button that shows previous sculpture. It shouldn't crash on the first sculpture. Wait, it's not crashing. Okay? It says the code crashes. It's not crashing. It said the code crashes, but the code is not crashing. It's completed. Anyway, but what they want me to do is put a previous. Alright, we're gonna put another button here. and call it previous, and we're gonna copy this function and we're gonna call it handle previous click set index -1, and on click we're gonna call it handle previous click. Done. Next previous, next previous. Easy. You guys just see what I did? I'm so smart, aren't I? Because I understood the code, how this code works, how this handle previous click works, how this handle this works. It's all right. Everybody will get it once you understood the code, how these syntaxes works. Once you understood how these syntaxes works, you can literally go to YouTube and find people make copies and clones of other websites, and when you look at them, you will understand so many things from it. Once you understand the syntax, it's a whole new world for you. Do not watch YouTube videos, tutorials on how to clone stuff if you don't understand the syntax. That's a very important stuff. I just finished the challenge. Tell me I finished the challenge correctly. Fix stuck form inputs. When you type into the input field, nothing appears. It's like input value are stuck with the empty strings. The value input is always set to first name. Both input value input is set always to match the last name variable. This is correct. Both inputs have unchanged error handler, which is trying to update a variable in the last name. However, variable doesn't seem to remember their values between re-render. By fixing this, using by using eState variable instead. This is hard for me because I don't know how to use using state. I can use state, but you know what? I'm first gonna look into it. Placeholder, first name, value, first name, input. It's not taking the input. First thing first, it's not taking input. Let me analyze the code first. Let first name, last name. Import use state. Where's it? How do I declare the use state? This is a little bit tricky, but first name last name. This is not a let e. Wait, this is supposed to fix it. I guess I'm doing it wrong. All right, let's not. The first use state from React replaces the first name. Oh, I have to call it like this. Okay, this is something new. So far I learned about valuables, not the constant. You know what I'm talking about, right? Now it lets you type, and you click reset, it resets. All right. Okay, first important, use React. I did that. Then replace first name and last name with a variable declared by calling useState. I did this, but I kind of did it a little bit stupid way. Finally, replace first name equals assignment set first name. And do the same for last name. Do not forget to update. Okay, what they did is they add this and they did this, and prevent defaults. They didn't mention that here. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have a preventive. Oh, it does. Okay, never mind. Okay. Handle reset. It's also a function. Handle reset will change the set first name to this. Also, we are not displaying the first name. We are displaying set. Okay, never mind. We are displaying first name. That's a lot of changes in a small. Okay, the main thing I did is this, and also I forgot to add a reset function. Even though reset function exists, but the reset function goes to the first name gets stored in set first name, and last name gets stored in set last name. All right, next challenge. Fix crash. Here's a small form that is supposed to let the user leave some feedback. When the feedback is submitted, it's supposed to display thank you message. However, it crashes with error and saying render fields. Cost maximum. Render few hooks than expected. Can you spot a mistake and fix it? Let me see. Let me see the message. Okay, feedback form, use state. Is use state necessary here? Because they're just sending a message. The if is sent, thank you, else. Message use state to return, sending message. I can't find anything. If my guess is right, you're not supposed to use state, but your solution. Hooks can be called at the top level of component. Here's the first sentence. Define follow this rule, but the message define is nested in a condition. Move it out of the condition to fix the issue. How? So you just simply remove this. Right, they removed it here. Okay, it's a bit complicated. If my guess is correct, the compare between this code and this code. Okay, all right. I can't understand this code. Hooks can only be called at the top level of component function. Here, the first I sent definition follows the rule, but the message definition is nested in a condition. Move it out. All right, let's ignore this. I mean, this is only the if sent return here, which works, but here, if sent. All right, never mind. Let's not get stuck into it. Remember, hooks must be called unconditionally and always in the same order. You could also remove the unnecessary else branch to reduce the nesting. However, it's still important to call hooks before the first return. Return, thank you. Yeah, this is a good one. I need to look into the hooks. Anyway, that's for that one. Next challenge. Remove unnecessary state. Oh my god, I don't even know what's a necessary state. When the button is clicked, this example should ask the user's name, then display an outlet greeting them. You try to use the state to keep name, but for some reason, it shows hello. To fix the code, remove unnecessary state variable. We will discuss about why this didn't work later. Can you explain why the state variable was unnecessary? Because we're not storing name. They're just simply displaying it. It just returns at me. Alright, I think I can remove it. We can call set name here. Function native code? What the fuck? Okay, now I forget it. My brain is not good enough for this one. Let's show the solution. Here's a fixed version that uses a regular name variable declared a function that needs it. Yeah, I did this, but it didn't do anything. I removed the use state, but you didn't call it. Ah, I didn't declare the name variable. I mean, I just simply change it to name. Doesn't display. Okay, never mind. My brain is not really good, I guess. constant name equal to prompt, what is your name, and that name gets from the alert. You click, you type something, and that gets displayed. But it's kind of weird that the constant is getting displayed inside the function. Oh, I'm supposed to declare it here. I'm supposed to declare it on the inside. No? Okay, never mind. Leave it. I was unable to do anything with that. Alright, now next one will be render and commit. You know what? I'm gonna literally stop with each one of them. They're like 30 minutes each. No? Or maybe let's just end with this render and commit. Before your components are displayed on the screen, they must be rendered by React. Understand that steps in this process will help you think about how to execute code and explain its behavior. You will learn what rendering means in React and when and why React renders a component. The step involved in displaying a component on screen, why rendering does not always produce a DOM update. Imagine that your components are cooks in the kitchen assembling tasty dishes from the ingredients. In this scenario, React is the waiter who puts in requests from customers and brings them their orders. The process of requesting and serving UI. 3 steps: triggering a rendering. Wait, didn't I just saw this earlier? No? Alright, never mind. Let's look into it. There are 2 reasons for a component to render. It's the component initial render. The component is one of the ancestry, so it has been updated. Initial render. When your app starts, you need to trigger the initial render. Frameworks and sandboxes sometimes hide the code, which it's done by calling create root with the target DOM node, then calling render method your component. Alright. Create root, create DOM client, image from image.js, image, and we display the image. Try commenting out root.render call see. I mean this one, right? Yeah, it usually displays my app, but here it displays this. Anyway, re-render render stands after. Once the component has been initially rendered, you can trigger the further renders by updating its state with the set function. Updating your components state automatically creates your render. You can imagine these as a restaurant gets ordering it to eat, dessert, and all of things, but in the desert, depending on the state, thirst, of hunger. Case. React renders your component. After you trigger a render, React calls your components to figure out what to display on the screen. Rendering is React calling your component. On the initial render, React will call the root component. For subsequent renders, React will call the function component whose state update triggered the render. This process is recursive. If the updated component returns some other component, React will render that component next. And if that component also returns something, it will render that component next, and so on. The process will continue until there are no more nested components, and React knows exactly what should be displayed on screen. In the following, React will call gallery image several times. Okay. During initial render, React will create a DOM nodes section had written 3 image tags. During re-render, React will calculate which of their properties, if any, have changed since the previous render. It won't do anything with that information until the next step, the commit phase. React commits changes to the DOM. After rendering, calling your component, React will modify the DOM. For initial render, React will use append_child DOM API to put all the DOM nodes it creates on screen. Right, let me finish reading it. After that, I'll explain what it's in a simple way. For re-render, React will apply the minimal necessary operations calculated while rendering. To make DOM, React only changes DOM nodes if there is any difference between renders. This works because during this step, React only updates the content of H1 with the new time. It sees that the input appears in the JSX in the same place as last one. It doesn't touch input or its value. After rendering is done, React updates the DOM. The browser will reprint the screen. Although this process is known as browser rendering, will be referred to avoid confusion the rest of these documents. Recap. Any screen update in React will happen in 3 steps. Trigger, render, commit. You can use strict mode to find mistakes in a component. React does not touch the DOM if rendering is the same as the last time. Alright, the simple thing is render, trigger, render, commit. Trigger, render, commit. This is a render. Commit is displaying. Trigger is that your code changes. Okay, code changes, trigger. This will render, and when it displays something here, it's the commit. That's the web explanation. Okay, here the gallery displays 3 times. Right, it was displaying earlier. It's loading. Okay, it will not make any changes here. As soon as you change something here, it will be changed here, because every time you change something, it will re-render. If there is no changes, it will just simply display it. That's what they're saying. If there's no changes, the DOM will do nothing. React commits changes to the DOM. You see, the time is just changes every second, so it just simply updates it. Commit is another way to change it. Updating is another way. Okay. Why there's an input column here? Is this even necessary? Okay. This works because during the last step, React only updates the content of H1 with new time. It sees that input appears in the JSX the same place as the time, so React doesn't touch the input or its value. Yes, it's just explanation. React is making changes because this is changing, and it does not do anything to the input because input does not change. Although input default value is equal to time. There's an error on there. You see that? See that I put the default value is time, and whenever the time changes, it also changes. Funny, right? But it's just what it does. See, the DOM is giving some error. Who cares about error? We fixed it. But if you make any changes, it will update it. Whatever you do, it will just simply update it. Anyway, that's it. Now we're going back to state as Snapchat. And I'm going to end this video because this is a little bit 40 minutes. So I'm stopping this, and next we'll start with state as Snapchat. Snapshot.